What's going on, guys? Welcome back to NolanTCG, and we are back here for another deck intro too. So I've decided to get really into Ogdoadic, or Abhyss, with lots of enunciation on your H in when you say that, because that's how you were originally supposed to say it. Why didn't they just keep it that way? It's a much better name. But we're going to be doing a little bit of an introduction to this. I'm going to show two deck lists that I've been working with and kind of messing around with online. I am going to put this together in person, definitely. I have already ordered the stuff. The set came out today. Or this is being recorded on Thursday. Yeah, so all the stuff came out today. I've already picked it all up from Nikijo. As always, if you're in Australia, head over to nikijocollectibles.com. Enter code Nolan5 at checkout. I never ever say this, but we've always had a promo code for them. So check that one out if you are in Australia. They do ship international as well. But first off, for the two lists that I've got today is, this is more of a pure / danger build that I've decided to go with. Originally, I was messing with stuff like Allure of Darkness in this deck, but ultimately I decided to go with more of that trade-in level 8 kind of engine. A part of this is that I've put in Bigfoots. Originally, I was putting in Chupacabras to try and extend by getting them back onto the board. I found that that wasn't really coming up, and that the Allure of Darkness was hurting me more than anything, because I'd be losing that resource out of the hand. Whereas with the trade-in, we can use it with the Snecks. The Snecks can come back. They can just kind of become a constant resource. But the list for this one is 3 Nibiru. We got the 1 of the big boy, the Deity of the Abyss. Then we've got the 1 Darkus Diabolos. You can play this at more if you wish to play this at more. I just kind of felt as though 1 is correct. The 2 Melody of Awakening Dragon can become a bit of a brick if you draw both of them, because you don't have 4 targets, so you're only going to resolve 1. I guess in that situation though, you can just use 1 to discard the other. If you see another one later, I guess it's just kind of dead. If you've opened 1, discarded, and then you top deck 1 off a trade-in or something, that could be a little bit rough, but ultimately, I feel as though it's correct to just go with the 2 power cards in the 1 copy of Darkus Diabolos and the 1 Levy. We have 3 Bigfoot in the middle here as our level 8. You can switch this up for other dangers that are level 8, because they do just all work with the trade-in. Bigfoot just has the most attack, which is what I've gone with. Then we have the 1 copy of Levy. Just Levy, rip a card of the opponent's hand ideally. In this list, you can rip 3, but you do force feed your opponent to draw 1 card in that situation. So technically, you're just ripping 2. But yeah, you rip 2 on the opponent's turn. If they add, you rip another. That's the best way to go. Then for our other big snacks, we've got 1 of the Amanisa, we've got 1 Aron, and 1 Curse. I feel as though you can just buy these. If you're buying the deck, just buy 1 of each. You don't need multiple. You just access them from the grave anyway. You just send them. Drawing them is bad, so you don't really want to play them at multiple numbers. So 1-1-1 is the correct ratio probably for the 4 big Abyss monsters. We're not playing the other one though, the 4th one. I just kind of felt as though it was mediocre. So we have the 1 of the level, the 1 Tribute 1. That one's just to recur the grave resources. Then we have the 1 that can rip the card of the opponent's hand, and 1 that can send the card. So that's kind of what I felt was optimal. Then we've got the rest of our danger package here, not counting the Tsuchinoko and the Jackalope down here, and the 1 Nessie and the 3 Moth. We're playing just the 1 Zoha. You're not really needing this card, massively. I typically will send it and then use it to discard, the Darkus Diabolos if it's stuck in my hand, or a big Snake if I just want it engraved. That's mainly what I use the Zoha for. Of course, the on-field effect is decent, but again, it does force feed your opponent 1 card, and that might not be something you want to do. Then we have the 1 Nil. Again, the Nil I just use at 1 because you special summon it back from the grave to resolve the effect. If you're using Snake Rain, I'll typically send the Nil, so that's the card I'm bringing back off the curse. And then you can get the search for the Foolish Burial. Hopefully you have the 5. If you resolve Snake Rain, you should always get to this. This can then set you up with the Deity. Then we have the 3 copies of the Nolan Dreg. This is probably your best discard, because discarding this can just Foolish Barrel your bigs, or it can get into your Nil or the Zoha. Zoha can come back to your hand and kind of unbrick. It also recurs from graves, so it's good to have it at multiple. Then we have, of course, that Tsuchinoko and the 1 Jackalope. They are always good when you go in your danger lineup, and the 3 Ash. The 3 Ash, 3 Droplet, and 3 Nibiru can all be switched out as to whatever you would like to play if you want to play more of a budget approach. I just kind of come to the assumption that Droplets is probably good to be playing in the deck because you have a lot of bricks that you can have in hand, and you really want to get them out with the droplets. Don't want to have them being completely dead. Then for our spell lineup, of course, we have the 3 Snake Rain. If you resolve this, you should at least have a board wipe for the opponent's turn. Hopefully you have done that. Hopefully you've done more than that, and you've ended on the board wipe plus the 1 that either rips or the 1 that sends. Then we have the 1 Snake Lily, of course. That's just the card you're going to add off the Niln. Typically, if you're resolving this card fully, you've already run out of reptiles in your deck, so you don't need this at multiple. 3 copies of Trade-In, of course. You're playing all these 8s, you may as well get some draw power off them. The 2 Melody combos perfectly with the Trade-In, because you can get that Darkest Diabolos and then discard it off the Trade-In, and away you go. Then we have the 1 Monster Reborn and 1 Cold Buy. These are just power 1-offs that I've decided to go with. The Cold Buy can just be a little bit good for handling those rough hand traps at times. And the Reborn, none of these cards lock you to having to summon them by their own way, so you can just Reborn them back, and it's great. And then we have, of course, the 3 Droplets. Then for our extra deck, we're playing the 1 copy of Dragublion, just because you're playing a whole bunch of 8s again. You can OTK with the 1 copy of the Numeron Dragon. We have, of course, the Hope Harbinger, the Tachyon Dragon, the Photon Lord, and the Sanafond as our 8s. The Tachyon's typically what I'm going to shove under the Numeron anyway. Then we've got, of course, for the 4s, we've got a Baguska, a Dweller, and a King of the Feralymphs. The King of the Feralymphs is incredibly important in this deck, because when Null is on your board, you're locked to reptiles, so you do need to go into a King of the Feralymphs to get rid of that. Then this, of course, does net you a search. Rather cute in this build, it can search you a Tsuchinoku, if a Tsuchinoku is what you want to go with at that situation. Then for our links, of course, we have the 1 access code, the 1 Appaloosa in our big boys, so access code typically will just be pushing for game. It's not difficult to get to a link 4 in this deck. Getting them with multiple, so you can get your Fornegate Appaloosa, or your access code just being really big, because you've transitioned through Unicorn is great. Of course, we do have the Unicorn and the Nightmare Phoenix, just for those 2 Nightmares that we can go into, just to deal with a couple of problems. The 1 Alien Shock Trooper, again, that's for clearing off your Nuln from the board, if you need to get it off board to just do other things. It can also, really come in handy when your opponent has a big board. You just make this, discard, put A counters and everything, ram into your opponent, and then just pop off massively. And then we have, of course, the 1 IP to round out the extra for this one. So now we'll bring up my other list. So now the other one we've gone with is an Ogdoadic Invoke list. Typically because you're not using your normal summon in the deck, I feel as though Alistair is a good way to play around. In this deck, having access to an Alistair plus a Snake Rain is a very big combo, and I'll show off just what it can do later. If you put a Melody in that as well, it is Rip 2, end on a Board Wipe and a Macabre. You can also sneak in an IP in there if you want to sneak that in. But for the list for this one, of course, we are just playing... All of these lists are going to have the 3 Droplets, 3 Ash, and 3 Nibiru in the main. I just kind of think that's what I'm going to be going with at locals, just because a lot of Nibiru's... Nibiru stops a lot of things that are running around my locals at the moment. But then, of course, we have the 1 Ogdoadic, the 1 Darkest Diabolos, and the 1 Levy. Again, just same ratios here as we see the 1 of each of the big boys, 1 Nessie, and the 1 Zohar. Then we have 3 Ali rounding that up, because this is your primary normal summon now. Then you still have that Niln and the 3 Null as well, so just your typical summon back, everything. These are just standard. We went through it before on the last list, and it's the same theory here. 1 Tsuchinoku, 1 Jackalope though. We have, of course, cut out those 8s because we don't need those in this list. That's what we've cut out to fit the Alistair package in here. But of course, yeah, we do have those 3 Ash, 3 Snake Rain, and the 1 Snake Lily again. Same ratios, so it's the 2 copies of Melody. This time around, we've got the 1 Terraforming in here to get our Meltdowns though, so we've got the 2 Invocation as well. So we've got that Reborn, 1 Cold Buy, 3 Droplets, and then the 3 Magical Meltdown round at the main deck. I've been messing around with this side deck, so don't take too much faith on this side deck. It's not the best. I need to mix it up a bit. Then we've got 2 copies of Macabre, 1 Ogdoadic, 1 Purgatory, 1 Kali are our invoked cards. This is just your pretty standard lineup. Rather cute. You can drop this Kali out pretty easily in this deck. Same with the Macabre, because they're all lights and darks. You're not ever super stressed about it. Using the Magistus Maiden. In a situation where you have the Darkest Diabolos in grave, you don't typically make the Magistus Maiden. You'll use the level 1, the tribute one, Snek, the Curse, to just tribute Yali, because it'll get back your Darkest Diabolos, and that's probably the most value you're going to get out of it. However, if you don't have the Darkest Diabolos, you can just go up into the Artemis, or the Majesty Maiden Artemis. Then you can use the Curse to tribute it off, so you're not using the Invocation to just get it straight from field. That just gets you an extra little bit of resource to play with when you're grinding out. Then, of course, we have our Xyz. We're still playing those 3 4s in the Baguska, the Dweller, and the King of the Feralymphs. Then for our links, we've got still much the same, except we do have that Artemis in here of just the access code Appaloosa, Unicorn, Phoenix, Shock Trooper, and Masquerena. Now, we'll get into a bit of a replay. Okay, next off now we have our replay. So this is against that Winwitch, Winwitch Chainburn deck that's been floating around. So don't take it as too much of a representation of the meta. This deck isn't really meta at all. It's low tier rogue. So that is I'm talking about the Snek Invoke deck. It's not gonna blow out a whole bunch of meta decks, but it is gonna make things just annoying and it's just overall a fun deck to play. If you have a pretty casual locals, it's something I would recommend. But we're going to go through this replay now. So here I've opened the Snake Rain plus like the Alley package, which is always good. We also have that Melody as well, so it's going to show off fully what this deck can do when you have those 3 cards in hand. So opponent pretty much just goes Glass Bell Search. That's their turn done. They don't have anything to really slow me down or stop me, so we're just going to go into the Meltdown, get our copy of Alley. We're going to use that Melody, discard the Nessie to get the 2 resources. Nessie will of course get us another resource back. Now of course we have the Diabolos to discard off the Snake Rain. Normal summoning the Alley to get the Invocation. So now at this point, because we've had the Darkest Diabolos, access to the Darkest Diabolos, we're not going to go into the Link 1, because tributing off the Alistair is just more of a resource. It's better for our resource game, I guess. So we're going to tribute it off with the with the Curse. Curse will bring back the one that's going to search us the Foolish Burial, and then we're also going to get our Darkest Diabolos. So then the Foolish Burial comes out. We're going to hold that for later though, because we do need those 5 snakes engraved to get full resource out of that. Or full value, I don't know why I keep saying resource. We're going to search ourselves a Null though, just to get that extra resource into grave. We're going to try and get as much in there as possible, so that this Snake Lily can get as much value. Also gives us more darks to play with for Levianir for later. Overall, we don't end up using the whole hand in this situation, because here we're just going to go into... So we've gone into the Aron pretty early, just in case our opponent has some way of slowing us down by adding at all. Couldn't really figure out why. We just kind of slapped it down, because it's good. Then, of course, we go down and drop out the Deity when we use the Snake Lily. It's just free resources. Really, really good. Can just board wipe. It's a board wipe. Yeah, I'm rambling for a little bit here. But now, of course, we are going to summon our Macabre, slap down the Levy. The Levy's going to rip a card of the opponent's hand. We're going to use the Darkest Diabolos to tribute that Levy because it can't attack anymore. Rip the other resource out, add back our Alistair, and just OTK through this. We haven't used the Jackalope in here at all as well. If you do want to, you can like slap down the Jackalope. If you were in the situation you did have the extra resources, you could slap it down and then work with the other one to come back from grave, so that you'd then be able to end on the Macabre, the board wipe, then the one that will rip the card from the opponent's hand, and the one that will send. That is something I could have gone for in the situation, but I felt as though the risk of discarding an Invocation was a bit too high in case maybe he had a Battle Fader or something, because I did know the matchup I was playing against. If he had like Swift Scarecrow Battle Fader, it would have like kind of shut me down there, so I kept the Invocation in hand. Didn't want to discard the use a Jackalope just in case I accidentally discarded that. Then it maybe would have hurt me, say if he activates that the Mystic Mine in hand. But that wraps up here for this month's introduction to. So if you do have any recommendations of snack decks to try, make sure to comment them down below. I quite enjoyed messing around with this, and I was just like messing around with this for probably the past week. Realized that I was quite enjoying it, so I decided to buy the deck just straight up on the day. Remember, you don't need 3 ofs in all those ultra rares, just 1 of is perfectly fine, so it makes the deck perfectly budget. I think I picked up the whole core for like 75 bucks Australian, and I was quite happy with that. But as always, I've been Ben from NolanTCG, and have a good afternoon, everybody.